This video contains insights and concepts that the viewer may find challenging and delightful. Viewer engagement is advised. 7 Principles. System Dynamic Explained. Namaste and welcome to this applied Jainism presentation. Clarified in this video are the details which, according to Jainism, are involved in the bondage of soul with matter dynamic and the liberation of soul from matter. Before starting, there are 3 comments that need to be made. First, it will be helpful to view these 2 videos, Part 1 and Part 2, as the information presented in both is necessary for understanding what follows in this video. Second, it is helpful to clearly appreciate the importance of these 6 eternal substances for understanding the insights into reality that the Jain religious philosophy presents. Third, I must alert you, this presentation is more complex and abstract than Part 2. In Part 2, the fundamental 7 principle system was outlined. These are the 7 essential principles that reveal the embodied soul dynamic, as well as the fact of liberation. These 7 principles also reveal the way to liberation: stoppage, shedding, liberation. The system with 2 additional principles, making 9, was also shown. To reduce the complexity, the explanation will involve the 7 principle system. Now let's begin the explanation. Jainism states, from beginningless beginning, soul has been in relationship with matter, making it an embodied soul. Here is a diagram of the dynamic that keeps soul in bondage, or in relationship, with matter. The system explains, from beginningless beginning, Principles 1 through 4 and Principle 6 have been occurring. Note here, shedding, Principle 6, must take place for influx and bondage to occur. Principles 3 and 4. In this regard, Principle 6 occurs before Principles 3 and 4. To explain this dynamic, recall, it is the influence of matter on soul that causes emotion. Emotion generates a corresponding action in thought, word, and deed. The energy associated with emotion acts as a magnet to cause matter particles to flow to the soul. Principle 3, influx. The matter in turn bonds with the soul. Principle 4, bondage. It is the intensity of the emotion, particularly those accompanying anger, ego, greed, and deceit, which determines the duration the particles will bond to the soul. When the duration is completed, the particles will disengage. Principle 6, shedding, at which time the reoccurrence of the emotion and action will be repeated. It is when matter sheds that emotions arise and corresponding actions occur, causing influx. If the individual reacts in the same way that created the emotion, the particles inflowing and bonding to the soul basically recreate the occurrence of the same emotion, thus essentially creating a reoccurring cycle. For example, if the emotion generated during the shedding is anger, and the individual reacts with the same intensity of anger, the particles bonding to the soul once again generate the experience of anger in the future. The shedding influx bondage dynamic will keep repeating unless there is an intervention to stop and reduce the action. Principle 5. Stoppage. Here is an example of how this abstract insight explains why a radical change occurs in an individual's life. It is between the principles of shedding and influx that an unexplainable mystery occurs. There comes a point when the individual begins to realize the frustration and lack of fulfillment in their life, and wants to be free from the reoccurring cycle. Something unexplainable happens that awakens their consciousness, resulting in efforts being made to make changes that reduce the inflow of the particles, changes that begin to reduce the impairing emotions of anger, ego, greed, and deceit. In 7 principle system terms, less reaction to the shedding principle means less influx and bondage, thereby potentially leading to liberation. According to Jainism, stoppage occurs by attaining the state of equanimity. It is when there is stoppage with no further influx that the shedding of the particles eventually removes all matter from soul and liberation occurs. The liberated state is known as purified soul. With the continued intervention of equanimity, the bondage cycle gradually transitions to the liberation cycle. It is important to realize the dynamic has a motivational aspect as the reduction of influx occurs. As the shedding continues with decreased influx, simultaneously there is an increase in the experience of the soul's qualities, such as peaceful equanimity, non-harming, unconditional love, happiness, fulfillment, self-reliance, and so on. The experience of these qualities motivates to act in a way that results in progress toward Principle 7, liberation. With the understanding of the underlying 7-principle dynamic, the individual recognizes the bondage process and makes effort to control the emotions and accompanying actions, thus reducing and stopping the reoccurrence of influx. To summarize, understanding the shedding, influx, bondage dynamic is the key to becoming master of one's destiny. From beginningless beginning, this 3-principle dynamic has been occurring. When actions occur which cause influx, a matching action is bonded. In other words, it is a 3-principle cycle. The shedding of the particles will recreate the action that had originally caused the influx and bondage. And on the cycle goes, creating and recreating one's destiny, unless an intervention occurs and effort is made to change the system dynamic. And keep in mind the time frame is eternity. Watching the actions that occur at the time of shedding and intervening to stop the duplicate reaction reduces the influx and accumulation of matter on the soul, leading to eventual purification and liberation of soul. Stop the cycle of influx, bondage, shedding by maintaining a disposition of equanimity. Through the religious practice of equanimity, the particles are completely removed and soul becomes purified and is consequently liberated. According to Jainism, all souls are independent, meaning the principles explain your own exclusive system that you can control and master. Once the awareness of these underlying principles is understood. The recognition of this wisdom is stated poetically in the last stanza of William Ernest Henley's famous poem Invictus. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Namaste. I bow to your eternal, everlasting energy with consciousness soul, the real you.